showdown. Oh yeah, we stood our ground. Shut out the lights, it got a little crazy. I don't wanna see us go the way of the buffalo. Don't wanna have another Wild West show. Hey,
Wild Bill Hickok was one of the deadliest shots known to man during his life as a lawman, frontiersman, scout, and gambler. His work as an actor in Wild West shows took him all over the East Coast of the United States, but he spent much of his time in and out of Kansas as a lawman and scout. Hickok's love for poker and gambling would find him in Deadwood, South Dakota, where he would meet his demise and final resting place. His adventures with cowboys, shootouts, and saloons would make him a dime novel hero and a legend of the American frontier. Wild Bill Hickok, whose real name was James Butler Hickok, was born in 1837 to William Alonzo and Polly Butler Hickok. James grew up with 5 brothers and sisters in Troy Grove, Illinois, 90 miles southwest of Chicago. He was the youngest of 4 boys and a big brother to 2 sisters, to which he was closer with. Hickok would later in life become known as one of the best shots in the country, and he learned this skill from hunting wolves while growing up on the frontier. He also learned that the law of the gun was necessary in frontier wilderness life, whether it be in taverns, slave stations, or wolf hunting. He saw early on the need for order and the importance of the law of the gun. After Hickok's father died in 1852, when he was only 15 years old, he left home and went to work as a mule driver on the towpath on the Illinois-Michigan Canal. Many historians believe he moved to eastern Kansas in 1855 and joined the Free State Army of Jim Lane. Hickok filed for a homestead in Johnson County, Kansas Territory in 1858. He bought 160 acres of land in present-day Lenexa at 83rd and Clare Road. He also became the constable of the Monticello Township and was a stock tender at the local Reed Hotel. James Hickok also spent time at Fort Leavenworth. He spent time with Buffalo Bill Cody's family in 1859 and would eventually return to Leavenworth as a famous Indian scout and man of the law. While at Fort Leavenworth, Hickok joined the Union Army as a scout, sharpshooter, and spy. He also did some work as a sharpshooter for the Free State Militia. After the Civil War, Hickok was appointed a Deputy U.S. Marshal of the United States to assist with recovering horses taken from Fort Riley. Because Hickok grew up on the frontier and was familiar with the land, he was very successful with the job. He even impressed General George Custer with his skills and became an Indian scout for him. Custer wrote about Hickok saying, "Strikingly handsome, the most famous scout on the plains. Of his courage there could be no question. His skill in the use of the rifle and pistol wane unerring. His influence among the frontiersmen was unbounded. His word was law." James Butler Hickok was an impressive-looking man. He was tall, well over 6 feet, handsome, was well-built, and had long hair and a mustache. Even though Hickok was a frontiersman, he liked to dress well. He enjoyed fine linens and was usually pictured while wearing a hat. Not only did he look impressive, but his skills were impressive too. He was the most deadly shot with a rifle and pistol that had ever lived, said his friend Buffalo Bill Cody. Frank Wilstach said Hickok was the greatest of pistol shots. For speed in drawing and accuracy in firing, he had no equal. One famous shootout in Rock Springs, Nebraska, on July 12, 1861, Hickok got into a gambling dispute with David McCandless. Hickok shot and killed McCandless with dead-on accuracy, and the shootout earned James Butler Hickok the nickname Wild Bill. By 1871, Wild Bill was working as the marshal in Abilene, Kansas. Abilene was a cowtown full of cowboys, gambling, and other corruption. The town paid him $150 plus half the fines collected in court. There was one gambler in particular Hickok did not take a liking to and wanted to get under control. His name was Phil Coe, the cousin to Jack McCall, who was Wild Bill's murderer. In October 1871, Hickok and Coe got into a shootout, and with all the commotion, Hickok accidentally shot and killed his deputy and friend, Jim Williams. Coe was also fatally injured in the shootout. It is said that Williams was the last person Wild Bill Hickok ever killed. After the shootout with Phil Coe and the great loss of his friend Jim Williams, Hickok moved to Hays City, Kansas, where he also became the town marshal. While in Hays, in 1872, Hickok would meet his future wife Agnes Lake at the circus she owned. Lake was an equestrian rider and high wire performer. Wild Bill and Agnes would meet again in 1874 and would eventually marry March 5, 1876. Hickok lied about his age on the marriage certificate because Lake was 11 years older than him, and it was improper for a man to marry a woman so much older. In 1874, Wild Bill joined Buffalo Bill Cody in a traveling Wild West show. Wild Bill acted in the show and showed off his skills in horse riding and sharpshooting. Even though Hickok excelled in these skills, he did not enjoy acting for an audience and wanted to return to real frontier life. He caused a lot of trouble while touring with the show, such as fighting with the town people, and ended up being fired. After leaving the show and marrying Agnes Lake, Wild Bill found himself in Deadwood, South Dakota, a town full of gambling and corruption. Some say he went there to clean up the town, but many agree Wild Bill went there to gamble. It was in Deadwood where Wild Bill would meet Calamity Jane, a frontierswoman and scout. It was long believed that the two had a romantic relationship, and Jane claimed that herself. She claimed that they had been married and had a daughter. She even went as far as to fake papers proving their relationship. In fact, Hickok was a U.S. Marshal in Junction City at the time of the alleged marriage. However, Calamity Jane and Wild Bill Hickok are buried next to each other in Deadwood by the request of Jane. The last part of Wild Bill's life was spent gambling in Deadwood. He wrote letters to his wife lying about his excessive gambling. On August 2, 1876, Wild Bill was shot in the back of the head by Jack McCall while playing poker. McCall entered the Bella Saloon and yelled, "Damn you, take that," and shot Wild Bill. Hickok was sitting with his back facing the door and had asked to change chairs earlier in the night because he liked to sit in corners so nobody could sneak up on him. When McCall shot him, Hickok was holding a pair of aces and a pair of eights in his poker hand. This hand is now called the dead man's hand. It is uncertain why McCall murdered Wild Bill. Some say it was to avenge his relative, some say he was a tool for others' motives, or a drunken McCall decided to do where many others had failed. James Wild Bill Butler Hickok was buried August 3, 1876 in Deadwood, South Dakota at the age of 39. Since his death, Wild Bill gained even more fame as a hero in dime novels, books, movies, songs, and television. He is currently buried in Mount Moriah Cemetery with a monument marking his grave. Wild Bill Hickok Park in Lenexa is also dedicated to his memory. He helped to tame the Wild West, but the Wild West would eventually be the end of him. As his name suggests, Wild Bill is an interesting character. He was a man of the law and an excellent shot. As is the case today, everyone knew him, and the legend of the gunslinging, gambling lawman will continue for years and years.
You can bury me